Welcome back to the channel. So glad to see you. Glad to have you. Pull up a chair. Today we're going to do video number 2 in our D&D Miniature series, and I'm really excited about this. We are doing these little axe warriors here today, and they are fun, and their helmets are interesting and dynamic with little beards and mustaches like poking out and big noses, and they're just really neat. And we can add a little detail to the armor to make them more interesting, and and that detail kind of transfers around the back, and you can do one line around the back, or you can do 2 lines around the back, right, like that one right there. Or you can take stuff you learned in the last video and use that hood that you learned in the last video and make a different style figure that has an axe but also has that hood going on. And it's a really neat kind of variation that you can do using both videos. And I wanted to point that out because people don't often think about that sometimes. And I want folks thinking about that kind of thing, taking this from this video and this from this video, and taking an Axeman that's got an interesting hood then, rather than just the figure we're going to carve today. So you've got options that you can do outside of the options that I'm going to physically show you. And that's one of the things I'm going to show you. Another option you can do is this, and I want to point this out. This is an Axeman, but I made the head bigger, put a little mop haircut on there, right? But why is this one more dynamic and interesting? Why I want to point this one out? The head is bigger, and because that head is bigger, it gives him a more dwarven look. The proportions have changed a little bit on him. And so that's something to keep in mind as well, that while you're doing this, if you want to go for a certain aesthetic, if you're wanting to go for a dwarven look, make the heads a little bit bigger, make the nose a little bit bigger, little changes like that can drastically change the perception of the carving and what people are looking at, or what they think they're looking at when they see it, right? All you're looking to do is trick the eye a little bit and give the illusion of a dwarf, or the illusion of just a regular Axeman for a village or a town or whatever. So let's go ahead and put the camera around and we'll jump right into today's tutorial. We're going to be carving this on a 1-inch by 2-inch long piece of basswood. It's 1 inch wide and 1 inch across, 2 inches tall. And I'm going to be using a knife only. I'm going to be using a Helvy 1.5-inch detail knife for this. I like this detail knife. I've got a little bit of vet wrap on there on the bottom because I prefer that for the grip. It helps me hold on to it better. It's the same vet wrap I use on my fingers. You see those in the gloves. Same kind of thing. When it comes to the carving that we're doing, we'll be carving out this block in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. This is the finished carving we're doing now. It's this particular block of wood. So as we do each cut, if you want to verify what's happened, how we're doing, you can refer back to this over here, the overlay, and see exactly what we've done and how we're doing it. So to begin with, I'm going to start by drawing a line from top to bottom, and then from left to right along those corners, just like so. Now I'm going to come in about halfway and go top to bottom there, halfway top to bottom there, and then front to back like that. That's the beginning, and you've seen this on the figures we've done. We're going to move here, here, and here for our wood. Now we're going to come down and bring this line here down the front about a 1/2 inch on either side. From this corner on the outside, we're going to come down 3/4 inch, and then we're going to connect those lines. So 3/4 inch to that corner, 1/2 inch to the inside corner, bring that down. And I'm just kind of drawing it pretty roughly. Obviously that's pretty wrong, so bring that up a little bit. Bring that down a little bit. So 1/2 inch to this corner, 3/4 inch to this corner, and I'll keep you precise on either side. For the inside of the elbow, we're going to come up 5/8 from the bottom, and that's going to be roughly right about here for me. 5/8 from the bottom. The inside of the arms can be 1/4 inch in. That's also going to be inside of the legs down here. About 1/4 inch in. Those elbows are 5/8 inch up. So that is the rough version of what we're going for first. Now I'm going to stop here, not going to draw anything else, because I want to start removing some wood first. I want to remove that corner, this corner, and this corner. And then I want to take all of that rough surface off the carving so we can work on this without having to worry about that later when we start to get a lot of detail in. So I'm going to start this first, and I'm going to start on one side of the head as I often do, and I'm going to curve in and up and out of the top, okay? In and out of the top. Now when I do this, for those of you who don't know, when you're using a carving knife, the bottom third, bottom half of the knife, this is great for roughing in, taking out a lot of stuff. When you're trying to do curves and whatnot, you want to use like the top third of the knife. You don't want to use the very back portion of this to do this. So if I'm going to be doing these curving cuts, I'm going to be using the tip of the knife and kind of curving in and out. And it's going to make it easier to turn that corner by only using that top third of the knife. If I had a lot of wood to remove, when we get the back here, I'm going to remove a lot of wood. I'm going to use the middle portion to the bottom portion of the knife to do that. So I got that corner in. Same thing here, using that front third of the knife. And just in and out at the top, inside, out at the top. That's fairly good, right? Now I want to take off about a 1/4 inch in the back. And here you can see I'm going to use the middle to bottom portion of the knife to take off more of that wood, bring that in. I did it from the middle, and now I'm going to do it from the middle down. Same thing. Taking some wood off right there. And now I didn't quite get everything off there at the back I wanted to. I'm going to do the rest of this from about the shoulder height up. So about shoulder height up, and take down to the back of that head, like so. That's pretty good. Now we're going to take out the wood on the bottom of those elbows. Just come in like that and carve up to it. Then carve down to get that bottom corner off. And that's a good start for that elbow. Let's do the other one. And there we go. We got that side done as well. Easy peasy, no fuss, no muss. Now that we're at this point, let's go ahead and take off all of those saw marks. I say this in every video, but I never know which video will be someone's first. The saw marks will take paint and stain differently. So we don't want to leave them there adjacent to all of our cuts with the knife, because it'll mess up the way our finished carving looks. So we're just going to take all those saw marks off right now so we don't have to deal with them later. And get rid of them. And get those chips out of the way. Okay, we've made great progress. Now we can look at setting in some more detail, because we don't have much detail right now. We got a pretty blank slate. That blank slate is just fine. What I can do while I'm here right now is I can take off those saw marks on the top of the carving too. We're taking off saw marks, we might as well. I need a paring cut here and just take those off. When I do this paring cut, pay attention to how I'm using the knife, because I am doing it like this. I've got the knife resting in between those fingers, and I got the thumb out here. The thumb is doing this action here. The fingers are curving in, and as they do, they bring in the knife, and the thumb is pushing out. This is the maneuver. See how far away the blade is from the thumb? Even if I get it closer, I'm not bringing the thumb to the blade, I'm bringing the palm to the hand to the palm, so to speak, right? So when I'm doing this, I'm doing this maneuver here, okay? I'm not trying to cut the thumb. If you need to wear a thumb guard while you do it, you should wear a thumb guard. I don't wear a thumb guard because I'm so accustomed to that particular cut, I don't need to, and so I don't think about it. But I always wear a glove here. Why? I cut the gloves up still, even though I'm good at this, even though I've been doing this for a while. And everyone should be wearing a glove. So definitely wear a carving glove. Don't skimp on your carving glove. All right. What are we doing next? What should we set our sights on? Let's set our sights on going ahead and drawing in our axe and our hands. Now the axe is going to be 1 inch up from the bottom of the carving. So let me take this ruler here and we'll put a 1 inch mark on the outside edge here. 1 inch up, okay? So this is 1 inch up from the very bottom of the carving. So from here we go, 1 inch up. And now this drawing is going to be hard to get any measurements on, because I'm going to draw something that is a more sheer curve at the top, and it will elongate and spread out, being a slower curve as it goes down. You follow? From the back, it's going to be a slight curve as well. Remember we said from the outside elbow to the inside elbow, that is a 1/4 inch inside the arm. So I'm going to redraw that 1/4 inch. The arm is going to come down to a hand right there, and this will come down to the top of the axe, okay? The inside of the hand will be here and come over. And then from there, there's the back of the axe that comes in, and this is the handle. It's all starting to take shape now, kind of, huh? You see it better? It's hard to measure that to get it exactly right. So pause the video if you need to. And if this helps, I'll hold a ruler up next to it, right? Pause the video if you need to, and then adjust as you need to figure things out. If this helps as well, put it down here for a little bit as well, or like so. So yeah, there we go. Adjust things there as you need to. Now over here, it's going to be a little bit easier. So we're going to come a 1/4 inch in to the inside of our elbow, and then we're going to bring that hand down. Once it comes down, a thumb is going to come out and in, come in, and then we come down to a hand like so, like that. So we got a hand that's going to be kind of hooked on a belt, and a belt that's going to come around to the axe. And that belt's going to continue around the back of the carving tube. We're not worried about that yet. We can come back to that in a minute. So that's what we're going to look for in the front. We're not worried about setting in the helmet just yet. We're going to start by setting in our elbows. So let's set in our elbows here first, inside of the elbows. The tip of the blade going inside of the elbow, I'm going to rock it in. And I'm flat on this plane, but coming into the angle of the arm. I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I'm going to rock this in with the tip of the knife in there. And now pay attention to this as well, right? You'll notice the back edge, the apex of the blade right here, that's not going past the line I drew. Make sure every time you do a cut like this, a plunging cut is what I call this, that the apex of your blade is going past where you want it to go, and you don't have those superfluous lines wherever you don't want them. Now I'm going to carve this out. I'm going to use the tip of the blade and carve in and try to follow those lines, come right down to this line here, the stop cut. Like so, and it should just pop right out. Okay, easy peasy. This is where it gets hard, because we're going to do the same thing inside of the elbow, and we're going to do the same thing over here, inside of the elbow. But now that axe is going to throw a loop for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the inside of the axe, where the axe and the hand meet, and put a stop cut there. And then where the axe and the hand meet from the other direction, and put a stop cut there. Okay, and I'm going to go a little bit higher with this one, past what I normally would. And that's okay, because I'm going to remove all this wood here. So I'm going to use that just as a way to get this out as one chunk. Now you can start in the middle and carve over. Start in the middle and carve over. Or you can try to do it all at once, do a swooping cut action. I think it'd probably be easier to start in the middle. So let's start in the middle and show you how to do that. Like a corner chip cut kind of right there, right? Now I'll do the same thing from this direction. Got corner chip cut. And then again, one more time. And that put a little bit of depth there. If you need to recut anything, just recut. We need to recut. And we're getting that little depth we need. Now, when it comes to carving this axe, the blade of it, it is right on the edge of this corner. And that's going to make it difficult to carve. So I want you to be mindful of this. Wear your glove, wear your protection, and then do not get too forceful with the knife while you do this cut. Because we want to set in some depth on this flat plane going in this direction for all of that plane of the axe, okay? So I'm going to cut this once, and then again, just kind of get deeper and deeper to like give that axe some depth. But as I do this, I'm not going to be moving the knife as much as I'll be moving the carving, and slowly following that line. And see, I just came loose and I pushed into my finger. If I wasn't wearing a glove, I would have cut that finger. This is why those gloves are neat. And that's why I told you to be careful here. Okay, so keep those fingers out of the way and carve around. Do this again. I'm going to be more careful this time, because I was putting too much pressure on there, and I did exactly what I told you not to do. So, just food for thought. If Johnny can do it and have an accident that way, you could too. And I would have cut myself if not for the glove. Now that I've got that set in a bit, I'm going to come down here and just put a stop cut in right there. That's another selling point too for gloves, right? that would have ended this carving session. I'd be done right now. I'd be getting that taken care of. I'd be fixing that. But instead, nothing. Nothing at all because of a $10 pair of gloves, right? $9.96 is what this pair of K-Go Cut Protection 5 level gloves have gotten me. And obviously, like, they're not perfect. I got to cut them right there. They're not perfect. But they save little silly things like that where I might have cut myself, right? Where I might have cut myself. Silly little things like that where you might cut yourself. And no matter how good at this, if you're not paying complete attention, and right now I'm recording a video at the same time, so of course I'm going to have accidents. Definitely wear a glove. All right, so I'm just going to be taking off wood up to that axe and setting that depth in. I want to remove wood around it to bring the depth of that axe out. Just chilling. Figure out which direction you need to come from. Change directions however you feel you need to. If you need to redo that line to set that depth better, go ahead and redo that line to set that depth better. That looks pretty good so far. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing along the top edge of this axe, curving it down and in like so. Redo that line. Okay. And now I'm going to carve down to it. Try to chip that out gently so I can smooth it out on all of these sides, rotating the knife around a lot to figure out the right angle of attack to chip everything out of there. Now when you get done too, you can use a stiff bristled brush to get fuzzies out of there and make it look a little bit cleaner so you can see what you're doing. I prefer using like a bigger one, but some folks like using these dental brushes. Whichever one works for you. I'm going to use this one here. And that looks a bit cleaner. So I like those big bristle brushes like that to do this with. All right, on this other side, we're going to start right here in the hand. I'm going to go right into the webbing between the thumb and the fingers, and thumb and the fingers, and then carve up to that. And just set a little bit of depth. That has to be a crazy amount of depth, just a little bit. Okay? And we can set in the bottom edge right now of that belt right there. Start to define that, and then define the hand a bit more. The hand is going to be out further than the belt because the hand's going to be on top of the belt. But the belt's going to be out further than the waist, and the axe is going to be out further than the belt because the axe is in front of the belt. So there's a lot of things to consider as you're doing all of this. A lot of balls in the air, so to speak, of things we're thinking about, especially in a busy area like this. Keeping track of which one is going to be on top, which things are going to be poked out farther, and keeping that in mind is integral to having the right look when you're finished. It'll look off if the axe is a little bit lower than the belt in one spot or another. Okay, we're doing good so far. Let's define the bottom edge of this hand. Put a stop cut right there. We'll put a stop cut in on this side of the hand as well. And then along the bottom of that, so we can cut up to it, like so, and like so. Now that hand's defined a little bit. We don't need a lot of definition of that hand because it doesn't need to come out that far. There's not much going on there with that hand. So we can come back over here. We can start to define the back edge of that axe haft, the underside of our arm, carve right up to that, chip things out, maybe a little paring action to bring that down, or you can come in left to right if you want to and carve like that. You'll notice there are different ways to carve this. The way that I show you is not the only way to get these shapes, and if you get stuck on carving it only the way that I carve it, you're doing a disservice to you. Sometimes there's another way that might be more comfortable for you to carve. And you might think, oh man, it's probably more comfortable going from this direction. If there's a reason that you think that, maybe you should try it. If you mess up, you can do this again. Basswood is pretty cheap. It's not that difficult to get a hold of. And you can get some more and try again. Okay, take a little bit off that front there if that is poking out too far. So for right now, just bring that in a little bit. Okay, what are we going to work on next? Let's work on defining our hand and our axe on that left hand. I think that'd be a good spot to start. So to do that, okay, I'll point this out. There is not a lot of definition between the back of the axe, between the hand and the axe here. But we do know that the hand sits on top of the axe because the hand is wrapped around the axe. But we're not going to try to bring this hand out too far on the greater plane of that. We can, and we can do so by drawing a line along the back of the axe, okay? Then right here along the top of the axe, because this is all steel up here, okay? And what we can do is just slightly bring that level down. Not even a lot. Okay, just slightly, just a little bit. And now along the back of that hand, I'm gonna sink that in like this, like it's coming down to the hand. You see, just a bit of a shadow there. Along the bottom of the hand here, the same thing with the handle. Bring that up and elongate this V cut here between the back of the axe and the handle. Like that. So I'm starting to put some separation there. See how the shadow hits it now? Oh, keep that autofocus going. See how that shadow hits it a bit more now? So I can bring that hand up here and then put a little V cuts in there for fingers. Now I don't have to worry about getting 5 fingers on this little guy because no one's be counting fingers. And because it'd be hard to get that many fingers into such a small area. We're not looking to be crazy detailed. We're looking to provide the illusion of hands, not actual hands. This is the tabletop gaming piece. It's a bookshelf decoration. It's not Michelangelo's David. We're not looking to accurately and faithfully recreate the human body in every aspect. We're looking to give the illusion of having done so, kind of like a caricature. Okay, so we've got that axe a bit more defined. What we also want to do with the axe is we want to sharpen it. Look how thick that axe is. So to sharpen it, our grain direction in the wood is running up and down, and there's a little bit of a curve going back this way. And so if I cut it this way, it would wind up splitting because I'd be pulling on that grain direction as I did. So I'm going to curve downwards like so as I carve and sharpen this axe. And doing that will keep me from splitting. So from the top, I'm going to try to sharpen it along that curve. That axe. You follow? It doesn't take a whole lot. Just like so, and we have sharpened that axe. It looks a lot better. Let me sharpen it a bit more at the top, maybe. Like that. And that's a pretty sharp axe. That's pretty nice. I like that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now that we got that done, though, we can start setting in our backs of our elbows before we set in. We can set in the front of the hands, too. We can do this in any order we want to. So I could set in, like the wrist is going to be here. The elbow is going to be there. Same thing over here. Elbow's going to be there. Elbow's going to be there. Wrist is going to be right there. Okay? So we can start setting that stuff in now, and that will then translate to needing to set in the elbows. Then setting the elbows back here. And if we do that, then we need to set in the belt. All of this stuff is connected, right? We want this belt to be the same height in the back as it is in the front. So that bottom line there is right about like so, okay? So all of these things are kind of connected because one connects to the other, connects to the other. So you can start anywhere you want to. I'm probably going to start on one side and then just work my way around. So when it comes to right here, I'm going to start by setting in that wrist. The hand is under the clothing. I'm going to go along the top here, and I'm going to take a little 45-degree angle off the top here. Why would I do that? Because then it looks like the hand kind of comes out from underneath the clothing. And that's a very dirty cut up there above that. Let's go ahead and clean that up right now. So then the hand kind of sets back in there a little bit more. That's nice. Same thing here in the corner. This armor goes to that corner joint. That I don't know what you call it in armor. Someone can correct me if you want to put in the comments. But that corner piece there, it comes out right there like so. And it's going to come around to the back as well. But we need to set in the elbow to do that properly. So let's set in the elbow. We can put a stop cut in right here for the top of the belt. We can put a stop cut in right here for the back of that elbow. And then we can carve right down to it like so. And now we can bring the back of that piece of armor all the way around. Take out that little corner there to set some definition between them. We can work on setting in the bottom of that belt as well. And again, that's what I'm saying, like, you go from one thing to the other because they're all connected. So you kind of got to bounce around a little bit on some things until you get things to the point where that connectedness doesn't force you into working on something else periodically. You can kind of keep working on the thing you were working on originally. But for now, we're going to follow this around. So I can go back on the other side and sit in the back corner of that elbow, top of the belt, right like so. Carve down to it. Okay. Bring that belt around like so. So we brought that belt around, and now we can do the same thing for the bottom side of that belt. Like so. Thin this belt out a bit. The belt is really wide right now, sticks out kind of far. So I'm going to curve that down. I come around. That chipped a bit, so I'm just going to redefine that. And curve that belt. Make it a little bit smoother. Right? Nothing complicated. I like that rough, well-faceted look where all those knife cuts are showing. I love that look. So I think that looks just fine. I think there's nothing wrong there. So now we're going to work on setting in our hands and elbows along this front side here. So again, right through there, the hand is going to be under that section. I'm going to undercut that section and that section of the hand. So you see that hand now kind of, you can see this better on this side. The hand kind of comes out from underneath the sleeve because now we undercut that corner of the hand here, that corner here. It looks like the hand comes out of the sleeve, and that's the right illusion we're looking to do. That little bit of a thing really helps. Okay. That corner piece for that elbow will be a little bit higher than the rest of the arm. And we do the same thing. We undercut on the inside of that as well. And we continue that around to the back side here. Try to get a hold of this small carving sometimes, you know. And I continue that around the back side there. And right there. Like so. And some of these hard corners, you can take them off right now or later. You can do that whenever you want to. You're going to notice that I'm going to do that everywhere. I'm going to take all those hard corners and adjust them. But like that hard corner there is too much. Right there on this side, that's too much. But we're making good progress. He's looking interesting. He's looking dynamic. Much fun will be had. And that's good progress. Okay, so we're getting to the point now where we can start to work on our shoulders, our helmet, and all of that is kind of connected again, just like the belt and just like having to work all of that together. We're kind of working on all of the next stuff together as well. So we're about to put a lot of lines drawing on here now. So the helmet, and you can look at the overlay to see how we've done this. I'm going to pull these two guys over here, right? The helmet is going to be kind of angular when it comes to its shape here, okay? And we're not doing a crazy long beard. Let's set those guys right there where I can easily reference here. So we're going to bring this line down like so, and the same thing approximately on the other side as our beginning. Okay, that's going to be the bottom of the helmet. Okay, from the middle of that, we're going to come down to the pauldrons and bring those over. So from the middle of that, come down and bring that over. That's going to continue around to the back, where we come up to the back of the helmet, and we come down to the pauldrons, and that line comes around. Okay, so that right there is going to be the start of what we're doing. The helmet side is going to come back around like so, come around like that. Okay, so defining all of this is kind of our next step. That will help us get to where we need to, where we can start then defining all the facets of the helmet, because there's a lot of detail going on this helmet that makes this guy really interesting, and we want to get to that. But first, the pauldrons. So we need to set the pauldrons and the helmet to be higher than the chest piece. So I'm going to put my knife here, carving on this flat plane. The tip is going to go right in there at the corner where that pauldron and that helmet meet. I'm going to put depth in like so. The same thing from the other direction, right like here, and then I carve up and in and ship that out. Same thing on this side right here. Put that tip in again from the other direction, and carving up and in. Okay, and we've got that somewhat defined there. Now, right along here underneath that pauldron, we're going to carve up and set this armor underneath that pauldron, following that all the way around. Okay, and now we're going to set the back of that helmet in here, and the back of that pauldron, carve up to that, like so. Again for this side here, back of the pauldron, underside of the helmet, and carve left to right to chip that out. And set more of the back of that helmet in like that, right there. And now we can, if we want to do this right here, start to set in the side of this helmet, the top of that pauldron, all the way through there. Like that right there. So you can see we set that in, and look at that. That pauldron's looking good on that side, all the way around, like so. Let's do the other side. Underside of the pauldron, carving up to it, setting the arm underneath it, all the way around the front, just like so. And now we can set in the side of that helmet along the top of that pauldron. All the way around like that. Now you can see that we're getting not shallow enough right here on the chest piece into that arm. So I might try to bring that knife in and then deepen that up right like so. Okay, bring that knife in as a stop cut around the inside edge, and then a pretty sheer angle. Put a little depth there like that, because it provides a little more shadow in that area, and I like that. Now in this corner here, I'm going to bring that arm in and around, so it takes out a little bit of that depth and rounds the arm in. It'll feel more realistic, I think. I like it. Now, take my stiff brittle brush, knock off all those fuzzies while I have the opportunity. And that's really looking good. I didn't all the way define the bottom half of this mask, on this helmet. So I'm going to do that right now. There we go. And now what section do I want to work on next? Well, when we correct something here, the arms should go all the way up underneath the pauldrons. So if I need to, you can kind of chip that stuff out like that. This one, the arm doesn't go all the way up underneath there, so let's go ahead and fix that. Like so. Those arms go all the way up underneath there. That pauldron's a little harsh edge. We can fix that a little bit. That's looking really good. Okay. Now, our helmet here can get rather complex. So how are we going to do this correctly? How do I show it? I think I wrote it down over here as a picture. There it is. Okay. Here's the picture of what we're going to do, okay? This is what I'm going to draw on the front of this, because you can see it on our overlay. We want to get a nose in there, but we also want to have this outline of this visor coming in, and that nose needs to be out a little bit in the middle of that. So this can be kind of a complicated thing to pull off. When you do it right, I mean, I really think it looks really neat. It looks fun, and he looks complicated, and he looks interesting and dynamic, and just yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I think he makes for a great little figure to have on a table or a desk or whatever. But that's kind of the pattern we're going for. So I'm going to set that back there for now, and we're going to attempt to draw that on here without doing a lot of measuring, because it's kind of hard to measure this kind of a thing. Okay, so now the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I've got good flat planes. I want to have 3 flat planes to start this on. One down the middle, one on the left side, and one on the right side. But that middle one, I don't want to be too crazy thick. So you can see I've thinned out that middle one. See those planes that I'm looking at right there? Okay, that's where I'm at. I am going to bring in along this plane here and this plane here. I want that nose to be right there. Let me go ahead and set the depth in on that nose right now. Okay, so there's going to be that nose. Inside edge that nose, inside edge that nose. I might as well set that immediately. No reason not to do that right now. Like that. And like that. Okay. Now, I am going to bring that line down and in right to the corner of that nose. Down and in right to the corner of that nose. I want that nose to separate everything out. And then from there, we're going to come down. From there, we're going to come down. And that's setting in the pattern here. Now, if you want to, you can set a band around this like so. And I think that's dynamic. I think that's interesting, and I like it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But you don't have to. That's extra complication that you don't need to. And it's extra variation if you don't do it. You can have it on some of them. You can do extras and not have it on other ones. This is another way you can make these different and vary your carvings. Now in here, as we carve this inside out, because we want that band to be on top, we want it to be lower here and lower on the inside. As we carve this out, we don't want to carve too much out because we want us to be able to leave a mustache in here, okay? So for up here on our eyes, let's, on the inside of this, we're going to put that knife tip in that corner. Put that knife tip in that corner, okay? And then into that corner, I'm going to watch the apex of that blade, right? Watch the back half of that blade. I don't want the apex, the cutting edge of that blade, to go past that top edge of that helmet. I don't want to go too far past. I don't want to have this knife cut where I don't need it. Carve from the top, carve from the bottom, and chip some wood out here. Okay, just put a little depth there. These are sunken areas, are going to be where eyes are, but they're not going to be detailed. We're not going to carve eyes in there. We're just going to put some depth in there, and the illusion is that there's eyes in there, and that's enough for us. Okay? Carve up to it, carve down to it, carve up and down, like that, like so. And then we carve the inside edge of that nose to define that nose a bit, okay? And that nose ridge, like that. Okay, the inside here of one side of where a mustache could be, and inside of the other. Let me clean this up and you can see better what all I've got going on so far. You see there? Nothing crazy. Okay, to set that band, I'm going to do slight little cuts here. The same thing the other side, okay? Then carve into that. We set that band a little bit there. Now on the outside edge of the helmet. The outside edge of this side of the helmet. And now along that top of the helmet. How do I get that better? Let's draw that line with the knife and then carve down to it. That'll set it in better. We don't want it to be too in depth, right? I think for this guy, I'm not going to do the whole head ridge, right? This guy's got head ridge down the center manner, you know? I don't think I'm going to do that in this guy. I think I'm going to leave that without it. That's super easy to do if you wanted to, though. This guy's got one, too. Actually, maybe I will. I know I'm wishy-washy sometimes. Maybe I will. Carve those hard edges off. Take that corner off and that corner off. Okay? Let's draw a line back to the middle. And a line going back to the middle, like so. Okay? Super easy to do. We're just going to put that knife blade right down the center here, all the way up the front. We carve up to it, being very gentle not to go too far, and also not to lose control of the knife and cut yourself. Right? It doesn't have to be much here. We're just setting it a little bit. Turn it around and carve up to it. Like that. And it's not crazy detailed there. And when we wash the carving, those pencil marks will come off, right? It's not crazy detailed. It's not a whole lot going on. It's just enough. Okay? So, for our mustache, we're going to give the illusion of a mustache here by putting a little V cut in here and then cornering it like so, like that. And then we can set in the bottom of a beard popping out of here, you know, and maybe put a little V-notch in on one side. Put a little V-notch in the bottom, like so, to make it kind of a rough looking beard going on there, you know. Because the bottom edge of that nose on this guy is showing, I need to define the upper edge of that mustache with a little line right here, okay? That's what I just did there. But that is looking pretty good on that. I like it. So we're looking at adding some detail now to this guy. So I'm going to go around first, and I'm going to take off all the hard edges. Everywhere that I've left too hard of an edge, I'm going to look at it and determine, do I need to move that? Do I need to get rid of that? Especially on the arms. If the arms aren't clearly defined, with the arms being lower than the elbow pieces, I'm going to fix that on those sections, right? Now let's add some definition. Let's add some details. So here are some ideas that you can do for details. I like a little stop cut along the bottom. This is a stop cut with the top layer being higher, being lower than the bottom layer along the outside edge. And this is just carving out a line on the outside edge, right? For the pauldrons, and both work good. And on this one, I got a line going around the helmet as well. And that's interesting too, a little dynamic. It provides more. On both of these, those head ridges go all the way down around the back. On this one, we stopped at the top. You can do it however you want to. If you want to bring it all the way down around the back, we can bring that all the way down like so, around the back of the helmet. Pretty easy. And then carve up. Bring it down, carve around, okay? And let's say we want to put that that ridge along the bottom, right? How are we doing that? Little bitty stop cuts. All the way around like this, right here. So you're like, oh man, that seems like a lot of work. Yes, it does. But little details like that really sell your carving. And you can make it a little bit easier by kind of sliding the knife and get a little bit further with each time you do it. Sliding the knife a bit. Just like so. All the way up to the back of that axe haft. And you can probably take up details that I've shown you in other videos too. Like maybe you want to add a spiral around that axe haft, like you've seen us do on other axes or on other swords or on other staffs, right? You can make a spiral pattern on that if you wanted to. I'm going to do that stop cut thing up here. I'm going to put a line in there and carve down to it to define just a little ridge around that pauldron. Put a little detail on that, right? The same thing on this one here. Carve down, bring that around, carve down, pop it out. That adds a little something, right? What else could we do? We do the same thing kind of right here. So let's put a line right here and a line right there, and we'll carve the inside of it out, okay? And that starts to define that elbow piece as being more dynamic as well. Like that. See what I'm saying? A little something, something. A little something, something. Just makes things more interesting to have little details. They don't have to be a lot. They don't have to be crazy deep. Just enough to provide intricate patterns, you know, to put some interest into areas of the carving where it might not have been as interesting. And that puts a little bit of detail to them. And we can stop there. You can keep figuring out things you can do if you want. You can do that all day long, but I think that looks pretty good. You could even put several of those little lines in the bottom here, right? If you got a V tool, this is the little bitty number 15, I think. What's number 12 V tool? This makes those little lines really easy. So let's say we wanted to add a second one, and you get a V tool. All of a sudden, you're just drawing a straight line with a V tool. And you can see that the end result is extremely similar to what we did with the knife. But the V tool just makes a little bit shorter work of it. It is absolutely one of the first tools I suggest people get is a V tool. Past like a knife, you know, like a V tool. Get a V tool and a gouge if you're looking to get more. The sculpture set from Dockyard Tools, it's a really great set to get. I love that set. But there's where we're at. This guy's finished. I'm going to go wash him up, and then, yeah, I'll show you what they look like after they're all waxed and oiled, and we'll be good to go. Okay, I got them all washed up. I wanted to point something out, right? I forgot to put little ridges in this guy for his fingers. So don't be like me. Make sure you come back in here and put 2 little V notches, like so, to signify some fingers. They don't have to be much, just enough right there, and that's enough to give the illusion of it. If you want to, you can try to undercut that finger right there a little bit if you want to add a little definition to that. Make sure you got a little separation here between the top of the belt and that thumb. There's always something you notice after you wash, which is why I always wash and then come back and take a look at carvings. But they look a lot better once they're washed. So once he's dry, completely dry, then you oil, then you wax. There will be plenty of time between now and the time you see this guy finished when I record the intro and outro of the video. So make sure you understand that. There's a lot of time there. This guy's dry completely before I even think to oil and wax. For finishing these carvings, you'll see I have them in 2 different colors. One is a Varathane Cabernet color, and the other is a black walnut Danish oil. I don't waste any time with them. Once they're completely dry, I dip them directly in the fluid, and then I dry them off immediately with a paper towel, wiping them off completely. Wiping them off as much as I can to get every crevice and nook and cranny as best as I can, and I don't worry about it too much. This is not the process here that brings out the shine and sheen. It's the waxing and buffing that really does that. So set aside immediately, let them dry. I use paste natural finishing wax for buffing these. The process here is apply, dry, and buff. It is important here. Apply, dry, and buff. Once you get on there, set it aside for a little bit. It doesn't need to dry long, and then you wipe it all off with a paper towel as best you can. Wipe as much as you can off. For applying this stuff, I will melt it with a hairdryer. I'll get a hairdryer up there to heat it up because it makes applying it a lot easier with a toothbrush. Wipe it on thick and then wipe it off with a paper towel, like I said. Once you get it all wiped up, you go right into buffing. I use a different bristle brush, hard bristle brush, the same one I use for wiping my carvings down while I'm carving, but I use a different brush for different colors. That brush is going to knock off some of the stain as you go. That wax is going to build up in the cracks and crevices. That's okay. The brush will get it off. And I probably spend more time brushing than you think. Like I said, 1 Cabernet brush for the Cabernet, and that wax is going to come off the brush a little bit. That's why you don't want to use a brush on the black walnut Danish oil that you use on the Varathane Cabernet, because that red would transfer over to your brown carvings, the brown would transfer over to your red carvings. And if you're getting different color carvings, you don't want them to be transferring those colors back and forth. And that's all I got for you in today's video. Here are our finished carvings, all looking fantastic and set up, you know. I like the way they turned out. I think that out of, like the finish here, this is the guy we did today. I think that I prefer the elbows from this guy, but I like the double ring around the bottom from the guy that we did today. I really like that double ring. I think that's more dynamic. It's more interesting. I like that. And when it comes to the 2 variations on the shoulder pads, I think I like the one where it carves down to it rather than this one. But I think that I would do that line going across the top edge up to the helmet again as well if I did it again. But like, that's just like, add variation, make a couple, make one this way, make one that way. That's part of the fun of this, right? So thank you so much for sticking around the end of the video. I really appreciate you watching everything and watching the video on the channel. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content at all. Head over to Instagram, Facebook, give me a like and a follow over there. And then don't forget to mention on the comments and thank our Patreon subscribers, because they're helping to make things work around here, helping to give me the things I need to be able to do this kind of thing. And I really appreciate their time. I really appreciate their effort. And thank you all so much. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.